Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today I want to, frankly, I just wanted to rip on Mitt Romney for like an hour, but there were some other things that popped up. There was a press conference involving the group who found the 5 babies that we talked about on yesterday's show, and they shed a little more light. And I didn't see the video that Live Action had put together before. I'd seen some of the pictures, and I showed you guys some of them yesterday and talked about it and talked about some of their articles, and it was just hard to look at, hard to talk through anyway, just reading the article and having to look through the pictures on the screen as I was reading it to you guys. But they compiled a video together that showed more images, and it's just like emotional right now. I did share it on my Facebook and Twitter page if you are brave enough to look at it. And I think if you support abortion, you should be brave enough to look at it and see the sort of thing that you support. And you could say, well, I don't like it. It's just a necessary evil. Why is it a necessary evil? I really haven't heard good explanations, not for the broad swath that we just allow, because people are like, it's up to the woman, and they leave it at that. So if it's just broad swath, it should just be allowed. You do understand that goes for the woman who does it because she doesn't feel that she can financially do it at the time, which is a eugenics argument to me. That goes for the woman who wants a spider boyfriend, which I've heard that multiple times. It actually happens. And that goes for medical reasons. But most people who are pro-life agree with medical, like if the life of the mother is involved. So if like it's one or the other, you have to do something. So, but in most medical decisions at that point in time, most people would induce because that's faster. So know what you're supporting, but I shared it on Facebook. I shared it on Twitter. It's sick and it's sad what was happening with these babies, and also there was a lot of confusion evolved around why the pro-life group had these babies. And so they clarified at the press conference. Now they could do some digging, and perhaps, I know there's more to than that, but I'm gonna go through the story a little bit and explain why they had them and where the clinic was sending them to. And I also want to talk about Elon Musk, because he yesterday, which I didn't talk about this yesterday, but we talked about the other topic for so long, and it just, my headspace was so far there. But Elon Musk has bought a huge share of Twitter. He's the biggest shareholder now, and he did a poll on Twitter asking about free speech and if Twitter maintains that. They claim that's their goal, like different communication, and he said there'd be dire consequences, and people like, no, Twitter doesn't maintain and support free speech. So next thing you know, like the next day, he buys up a bunch of Twitter. Now he's a large shareholder, and now people are looking to him to make some changes if we can, and even bring back President Trump. So that would be interesting. I don't know necessarily. It might be entertaining. I don't know if it's necessarily the best thing for him, but it'll be really interesting, because the amount of censorship that has gone on Twitter is just really incredible, and it extends far beyond the president. And even the reason why they decided to kick him off didn't make sense. And then we'll go back to memory lane on there, because I did write an article about that when that happened, and it just didn't make sense. So we're going to talk about those things today. Before we jump into it, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles on the website, like the one I'm mentioning, I'm going to reference today, like the Twitter when they finally kicked Trump off of it. Check out the abortion article I wrote about how it's a moral harm to society. It's a societal harm, and it's not just about the woman and her decision and her doctor and her family and stuff, and how it does really impact the rest of the world. So there's a really good article on Black Tea News about that. So you guys can check out those articles. Please check out different merch that I have. I'm wearing my goat hoodie today. Well, I'm not the hoodie. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I just got my t-shirt in the mail. I did have my hoodie, but the hoodie's so comfy. But it's getting a little warmer, so you might want a t-shirt. I do have them in different colors, but I do like the white because it pops. So you can go ahead and get that today. Also, the I voted for President Trump, and all I got was historic peace deals, ISIS destroyed, gas under $2, tax cut, and this lousy t-shirt. There's other stuff on there. The I am not the victim you're looking for. Be better, not bitter. I posted a picture today of me wearing that shirt. And people really liked it, said it was a nice shirt. So you guys can check that out, especially once people to have some good gear by the time 4th of July comes along, because there's a lot of people who want to try to tear it down and make Juneteenth like it's the big thing instead of 4th of July. And that's a good one to have for Juneteenth too, I think too, as well as and by the way, Republicans have been celebrating Juneteenth for a while because it's like a Republican holiday because we freed the slaves. I have another one. It's my Frederick Douglass one that it's not. Oh, here we go. Boom. The Constitution is a glorious liberty document. So that's a really nice one to have during that time as well. So go check out different merch they have on Black Tea News. And if you guys appreciate what I do here, if you like what I do here, want to continue seeing Black Tea News grow, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and support that way. Whether it's $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever you guys would like to do, I appreciate it so much. And it does really, really help. There are expenses associated with what I do, but also want to see it expand as well. Got some big things planned, got some big things on the horizon, and you guys are a great help to that. I thank you guys for sharing. I thank you guys for watching. I thank you guys for following me across my different platforms on Twitter, on TikTok, on Twitch. As long as I think if you're watching this on Facebook and YouTube, I think all the links are there, so you guys can just go start following those links, and I really do appreciate it. I do want to thank Brandon Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. I'm the boss here, but they do like to uplift conservative voices, and I appreciate what they've done and having the space and using it for. I don't know if it's been quite a year yet, but I really do appreciate the space. So I'm grateful to them and everyone part of the pack and what they do for people in Michigan. So today I do not have a funny because I'm just not in that kind of mood today. Maybe we'll have some laughs at Mitt Romney's expense. But like I said, I just got done watching that video from Live Action, and it was rough. So again, if you haven't seen it, it's very hard to watch. But I encourage you to see it because sometimes we do have to stare injustice in the face to be reminded of why we're fighting for certain things. And sometimes people need to see those things to know what they're actually supporting and to be faced with the reality of like, no, that's not a clump of cells. So I shared it on Twitter and I shared it on Facebook. And if you haven't seen it, you can go to my social media and share it from there. Or you could go to Live Action's page and share it directly from there. But I encourage people to watch it. But it is hard, and the pictures are more extreme than what I showed yesterday, and it's just really hard. But the story circulating around these 5 babies who were found in DC. At first, the stories were coming out that there were pro-life activists who had them in their house, and then the authorities were called and tipped off about medical waste. So when the stories were coming out, reporting it, and I don't know if the left-wing media was talking about it, because I kind of first heard from Twitter, and of course, not Twitter, but TikTok, and that's not really the bastion of like great information. There's this huge account who spread a bunch of misinformation about it the other day under the desk, and people on the right have been asking please retract it because they said that these remains the police claim that everything was done legally or whatever, and so the babies in the pictures can't be more than 19 weeks old. And so one of my friends replied to the video, and they're like, where are you getting that in DC you can only have abortions up to 19 weeks? It's not true. That's not true. And then they assume that they probably got that information because if you do Google it, the first source of like will pop up will be like a Planned Parenthood in DC, and the most they will do is like 19 weeks. But that's not the max that you can do. You can do it later in DC. So people are like, please at least correct that, because they're just assuming that those babies are 19 weeks. But the babies that I showed you guys yesterday and the babies they found are much further along. We're talking about 24, anywhere from 24 to up to the 30, maybe 2 weeks that they found. So yeah, let's not downplay it, which I think abortion is wrong at any stage. But there's a big difference between a 19-week baby and one that's at 28 and even 30, 32 weeks. So that's a huge piece of misinformation that they put out there. But the group that ended up finding the 5 babies, it's not Live Action who did it, but they ended up contacting Live Action. But it's PAAU. According to their Twitter, we're progressive grassroots activists dismantling the abortion industrial complex and standing in solidarity with unborn victims killed by abortion. This is a sorry, that's old tweet. Sorry. So this is a tweet by David Daleiden, and if you don't recall David Daleiden is the person who got Planned Parenthood on camera talking about how they had different was selling baby body parts. And Kamala Harris she was out still in California. Instead of going against Planned Parenthood, they went ahead and decided to prosecute David Daleiden, and they like invaded his house and were taking all his stuff, and they just did everything to protect Planned Parenthood in that scenario. So he had tweeted out, breaking the group press conference confirms the 5 late-term, apparently born-alive infants discovered from 3rd trimester DC abortion clinic were packaged to be sent to a medical waste energy facility to burn their bodies for electricity. I didn't know people did that. I did not know people did that. So, I'm stunned when I saw that. Grossed out, concerned, mortified. So in their Lila Rose, who's the head of Live Action, they confirmed the press conference that the bodies of the 5 infants were recovered from Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services outside Cesare Santiago's abortion clinic in DC on March 25th, when a driver gave the activists a box of aborted children set to be burned as medical waste. Curtis Bay's website says it incinerates biomedical waste to turn it into useful energy. The activists alerted Live Action, which documented the remains. They also alerted law enforcement, who, as requested, picked up the remains from the activists' home. So whatever, like, I don't know, tipped off like there were crazy people hiding stuff in their fridges and stuff like that, And I'm not saying that's necessarily the way you should go about this stuff, but I guess we wouldn't have known if they wouldn't have done it. But some people made it seem like it was an inside job and like someone turned them in because they were nut jobs or something. But according to their press conference, they said that they are the ones who alerted the police that they had the waste. And you can say, well, why didn't they just go to the police in the first place when they found out all this stuff, or tip them off? A lot of people would like to sweep this under the rug. Again, David Daleiden, for example, he was the one who ended up being prosecuted by Kamala Harris, who is now the vice president of the United States, who very well could end up being the president of the United States. And she will be, we have the most pro-choice administration we've ever had in our history of the United States. And the crazy thing is one of them is Catholic. and Jen Psaki would literally tell reporters when they would ask questions like, don't worry, he's Catholic. And like, what does that mean? Like, I know what it's supposed to mean, but what does it mean to Joe? Apparently nothing. Apparently nothing when it comes to this topic. So don't try to use his religion as some kind of shield, like, don't worry about it. Because at the end of the day, they're still supporting this butchery. So that is, all of this is crazy. So the first boy, I did show you guys baby boy number one, Christopher. Experts have stated that Christopher may be nearly full term. He is intact and may have been born alive before being left to die or drowned. So again, DC doesn't want to do any autopsies. So people are demanding justice to know if they perhaps did any illegal procedures. Now, we don't think abortion at any stage, but particularly this late, should be legal. Certainly not ethical. But there are different procedures that they could have used to abort these children that, I'm sorry, I'm looking at these images, should not, they're just illegal. They use practices maybe that were illegal. So people want to at least find out, did they even do this legally? The activist named baby girl number one Harriet. Multiple experts have noted that her injuries, including her severed neck and removed brain, may have been consistent with an illegal partial birth abortion. And I did show you guys that image the other day. I did not show you her lacerations and removed brain, but I did show you guys a picture of her compressed head. Oh gosh. And then there's other images from the other children as well, but they need to do some kind of autopsy. And I don't know what all would be, how they'd go from there, because obviously there is a chain of custody that's broken. Because these activists, these pro-life activists, and they do have an agenda. Let's be legit about that. We all do have an agenda. But these are real babies who were aborted, and they deserve more dignity and respect than what happened to them. And we could at least know the truth, and they can investigate in other means, even if they cannot use these bodies as evidence. So this is the sort of world we're living in. Colorado, they just approved abortion up until 9 months. And there's people I've been arguing with back and forth. It's been for a while, but I was talking with someone today, and they're just, people are so convinced that women only have abortions that late if it's because of some medical issue. And that's just not true. I mentioned New York Times the other day. It was actually the Washington Post did some research into women and reasons why they have late term abortions, and some of it could be because of relationship stuff, whether they're in a relationship with an abuser, which is awful and terrible, and it's awful that we have abortion that actually, like, a culture that makes it the only option that women feel that they have to protect their child. Like, we need to protect women in other sort of ways rather than channeling that abuse to their own child. But then there's people who things don't work out with, like, the baby's daddy or whatever, for whatever reason. There's people who do it for financial reasons, or there are people who were just couldn't get the money before and they are raising it so they could have the abortion, and there just is a bigger abortion now to handle. So economics, relationship, jobs, like, a lot of reasons why women have abortions in the first trimester, second trimester, are the same reasons why, are the same reasons across the board. So it's just not true. And then I'll bring up Kermit Gosnell, who's a serial killer who had an abortion clinic, who did lots of late term abortions. They would induce and then, like, snip the spines of babies. And I'm like, I bring up Gosnell, and some people are like, he was an OGBYN, and why would you bring him up? I said, I bring him up because he was a monster, and this monster had clients. So yes, there are women who go out there and who will have long-term abortions, late-term abortions. I know someone who had and there are people who try to convince me that women don't always wait for like medical reasons if it's a second trimester abortion. I'm like, that's not true. I brought my friend on the show before to talk about her experience with abortion, and she realizes now that it was a mistake and it was wrong. And by the way, her abortion was horrific, horrific, because the anesthesia that they used on her did not work. So it was a 2-day procedure, and she could feel the doctor tugging on her insides, and she just cried herself to sleep until she like passed out from pain. And then the next day she came in and just paid more money so she could have, I guess, double the dosage, and she passed out. But even when she like woke up after the first day procedure, like how she explained was just a horror story, like something you would see in a horror film. But essentially, she got pregnant with a guy she didn't love. Well, she thought she was in love, but he didn't really care much for her, and she didn't feel that she was ready, and she was conflicted, and she just didn't know how to break it to her mom, and ultimately her mom let it be in her hands, but she thought it would be like a blank slate, um and she could kind of just start her life over again, and she just was conflicted, and that's why she waited. And I'm sure that's why a lot of women maybe wait that long, but just to chalk it all up to medical, it's just not true. It's just not true. So we can at least be honest about this stuff. So before I move on, and this is an important story, so I encourage people to go to Live Action's website and read that article. I don't think I maybe posted the article, but I guess I will share that on my social media after I get done. But I'm going to show you this image of baby one and baby two. So I'm just giving you fair warning. If you want to close your eyes for a little bit because it's too much, you can do that if you need to. But I'm gonna give you a countdown to 3, and I'm gonna show it for a little bit, and then I'm gonna take it off. 1, 2, 3. So the baby number 1, and the second one with the compressed head is baby number 2. And baby number 2 is the one where they're like, from the lacerations and the head compression and has a broken skull, probably had an illegal partial birth abortion. If you looked away, you can look back. So, justice for the 5. Justice for the 5. So, I'm going to move on now. Hopefully we get some laughs talking about Mitt Romney. I don't like him. Oh, there's some people, I think it was Allie Stuckley, who's like, man, that was the first person I ever voted for. But I guess she's a little younger than I am. Perhaps. The first person I voted for was John McCain. I think so. Maybe unless I did like a local election. But like my first presidential was John McCain and Sarah Palin, and I know there's a lot of people who on the right who don't care for Sarah, but Sarah was like my saving grace because I didn't really like John McCain very much, but I did cast that ballot because I was informed about Obama, and there were a lot of people who weren't. I remember being which by the way, he went to the White House, I think it was today, to pitch or repitch, like, I don't know, Obamacare or something like that. But I didn't look up any footage yet, so that's not why we're going through Obama and seeing what he said in Trash Obama Day. I didn't get the chance to. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. But when I was in high school, no, I guess because I wasn't in high school, I had to be out of high school, like for a year out of high school. I graduated 07, but we were having church at a hotel, and so there was another church, I guess, that was having service there. And so this older gentleman walked up to me and asked me, like, oh, so who are you voting? Like, do you know who you're voting for? I'm like, I'm voting for John McCain. And he's like, "What? Why? Why aren't you voting for Obama?" I said, "Because Obama supports things that are antithetical to my beliefs, my Christian beliefs." And he's just like, "Obama is a Christian?" And I don't know how much I knew about his like liberation theology sort of background, Black liberation theology stuff, and Reverend Wright and all the other kind of stuff. But I did mention, I'm like, when he was in the Chicago Senate, they had a bill about the opportunity to vote to save children who survive abortions, and Obama abstained from the vote, so he opted to not vote yes or no. So, and then he also said some wacky things. I say wacky, that's way too kind. Cruel things on the campaign trail, shady things on the campaign trail in regard to that topic as well. Like he said, if my daughters were pregnant, I wouldn't want them punished with a baby. I just think it's a really weird way to talk about your grandchildren. Um, especially since you're like a person of means and they're people of means. So it's not like you couldn't make it work. You couldn't take care of them, or you couldn't help them, or like Michelle can, can help out and all the other kind of stuff. So that just seems like I don't know if he was trying to relate to the plight of, I don't know, inner city single moms having to raise their grandbabies. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. And he also said the comment about, as far as like life, where does life begin? He said that's above my pay grade. And I've seen some people think that means like, oh, I get paid too much or whatever to think about stuff like that, or I don't get paid enough to think about stuff like that. No, that just means that's like I took it as that's a question that's really more left up to God. Like how can you know? How can you say? That's how I took it. But I think that's the sort of cowardly way, because if you don't know, wouldn't you err on the side of life? Like if there's a possibility, and perhaps a very strong possibility, since 95% of biologists agree life starts at conception, right? Every biologist book you're gonna find field development are gonna like say this is the origin of life. Of course, our origin of life was when we were conceived. That's when our unique human DNA came into existence, right? So obviously it's at conception. But if you don't know, and if you don't want to acknowledge, but if you don't know, like, why wouldn't you err on the side of life? Why'd you be like, oh, this is a wild guess, but we're gonna go ahead and just pass all this legislation about this thing I don't know anything about. So anyway, the man was so shocked when I said, oh, Obama's doesn't jive with like my Christian beliefs. And he didn't know what I was talking about, because this man just, I don't know what his background was, but a lot of people are like, oh, there's a black guy, and this man was black. I'm a black person. A lot of people just assume black people went ahead and voted for Obama. And frankly, that's mostly true. If you look at the numbers, it's just true. But I wasn't about to sway that way. And my ethics, my morals, my values, my beliefs, they mean more to me than that. And he wasn't a good president. I don't care how black he is. I don't care how black he is. And I don't care if a man said he was a Christian. What's it matter if it's not evident or relevant in your life at all? To be Christian means to be Christ-like, And so you can judge a tree by its fruits. So anyway, McCain was the first person I voted for, and I did vote for Mitt Romney in 2012. And that's when I really started getting involved with politics. I went to like a debate watch party, went to my first Lincoln Day dinner, which we really went because Trump was the speaker, which was really awesome. And me and my family like loved watching like The Apprentice and stuff. So it was just wild that, he was the next like presidential candidate, and I was like working to get him elected. So it was really cool. So anyway, I think what Trump said about Romney being a choker in some regards is true. And I do remember like when Benghazi happened, when the press started to kind of shoot Romney down about it, it became less of a conversation. And I know they were like scared to death that that would be like a huge thing that would tank their election. And Obama just sent people to lie and lie and lie. People get so mad at Hillary Clinton with Benghazi, and yeah, she like the emails and different, she was in Congress being like grilled relentlessly about it. But I'm like, she said what she said and did what she did in part to cover up for Obama. So she's like taking the fall, and everybody hates her. And you can go ahead and dislike her. That's fine. But people are like slinging mud, spears, and arrows at her. And I'm like, but and people on the right and left just like this woman so much. But I'm like, she acted under this man here. But he gets a free pass. People are like, well, I don't. Even Republicans will say, well, I didn't vote for Obama and I didn't like his policies, but I like Obama. I'm like, why do you like Obama? Like on a personal level, I don't understand. But Mitt Romney, he like backed off too quick. I think at the end of the day, he really does care what people think about him. Like, remember when he made like a fake Twitter account to attack Trump? Like, be a man and just tweet from your own account, dude. You have the guts to impeach him, but not to tweet at him? Like, come on. And maybe that's more about, like, you don't want the wrath of Utah coming down at you. But again, be a man. Like, you can impeach a man, but you can't, like, tweet him with the real name. So anyway, this bash on Mitt Romney thing, which is not the first time, but this has come about because he decided that he was going to vote for Ketanji Brown Jackson. And so he said, I intend to vote in support of Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation to be an associate justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. He said, after reviewing Judge Jackson's record and testimony, I've concluded that she's well qualified jurist and a person of honor. While I do not expect to agree with every decision she may make on the court, I believe that she more than meets this standard of excellence and integrity. I congratulate Judge Jackson on her expected confirmation and look forward to her continued service to our nation. I don't understand this because like a year ago he didn't vote for her, like on a lower court. So what has changed now? There's a couple of people who've pointed out in different tweets. They're like, the only thing that we kind of know now is the extensive record she has on giving lighter sentences to child pornographers. Like, so what is it now about this position that is much more serious that you would vote yes than you voting no before? What's different now? Besides the fact that now we know she can't say what a woman is. And then the next day she tried to clean it up when it was asking like, well, I know that I'm a woman. It's like, well, how do you know that? How do you know? So I'm baffled. I'm baffled by this. And people are so upset about asking questions about her record when that's what you should be talking about. You should be talking about her record. So what is it about her? You could still, and people who said they don't want to vote, aren't going to vote for her, said she's likable, she's nice, she's someone you might want to sit down and have dinner with, but to put on the court, no. And Mike Lee just made the point of like, because she says she doesn't have a judicial philosophy. He's like, it's really important to have a judicial philosophy. I'm going to go ahead and play him talking about that a little bit.
It's also important to talk about judicial philosophy. There's a reason we talk about it that. We talk about it because we must talk about it, because that's how we make sure that our government functions as it should. When you have someone serving on any federal court, but especially the Supreme Court of the United States, if they don't have a proper understanding for the limited role of the federal judiciary, for the separation of powers between the three branches, a judicial branch can become very dangerous, in which the will of the people can be thwarted by justices who are not willing to recognize limits on their own power. Now, when we asked about Judge Jackson's judicial philosophy. When we asked her, when we asked others, we were told frequently that we should look at her record. So we looked at her record. We've got a lot of things in her record that we found concerning, including a couple of cases in which she acted without jurisdiction. In both circumstances, she took an executive action taken within the Trump administration, action that she apparently disagreed with, and issued declaratory and injunctive relief to invalidate those actions. And in both cases, she was overturned. These cases haven't gotten as much attention as some of her other rulings, as some of her sentencing decisions, but they're very, very significant. They're deep.
I'm sure he'll explain why, but this is a really good point. Because her record and it getting overturned does show that she did rule in error. So if she's ruling in error and taking a bit of judicial activism here, what happens when she is at the top decision making court and there's no one left to clean up her mess? So I think the kitty born stuff is weird. Her philosophy, her consistent sort of sentencing below the record, which a lot of people have been trying to make it seem like that she's just on par with so many other judges and it's just normal. But that's not true. The Federalist Society had a good breakdown of her sentencing record, and I think it was like 57% below like the national average with her decisions. Trying to find it in the article, but it's not normal. Yeah. According to data from the Sentencing Commission, cross-referenced with the Judge Jackson's sentencing in child pornography cases, on average, she imposed sentences that were 57% less than the national average for possession of child pornography. For distribution, her average sentence was 47% less than the national average. So, it's not quite just like everyone else. But if you want to like say, hey, you know, she made the best decisions with her discretion, etc. Okay, but the fact that she had other sentencing that got overturned, again, what happens when there's no one else to say that she made a mistake and overturn her dumb decisions or activist decisions?
Troubling to me. Because when someone's willing to act when they lack jurisdiction and or when they don't have a valid cause of action upon which to grant that relief, that's someone who's cutting at the heart of the limits on judicial authority and creating a dangerous set of circumstances. So we're told to look at her record, and yet much of what we see from her record is disturbing. We're told to look at her record, and yet we still don't have significant portions of her record on another disturbing line of rulings, those dealing with her sentencing imposed in child pornography cases. I'm also concerned about her inability or unwillingness to answer certain basic questions. Whether it's in response to a question from Senator Blackburn, a simple question, what is a woman? To her refusal to respond to my question regarding her views on efforts to pack the Supreme Court of the United States. These are troublingly inadequate answers that she provides because she doesn't answer them at all to very basic questions. Finally, I'm concerned by her response to Senator Kennedy, echoing former Justice Brennan's philosophy that 5 unelected Supreme Court justices can find new unenumerated constitutional rights. Quote, well, at any time the Supreme Court has 5 votes, then they have a majority for whatever opinion they determine, close quote. That's troubling. I will vote no.
Yeah, so I think it's weird that she doesn't have or claims to not have a judicial philosophy. Like, do you believe it's a living document, or do you believe that we are supposed to adhere to what was written at the time, and it still applies to today. And if you feel so strongly that something needs to be changed, there's a process within the Constitution to do that. But you're not just supposed to do that actively from the bench, and that's what a lot of these Democrats want to do. So Mitt Romney deciding that he's going to vote for her again. He didn't vote for her before, so why now? Is it because he doesn't? I don't know. Want the hassle of not voting for a black woman, and she's going to get through anyway, so he doesn't want to take the slings and the arrows and be the old mean Mitt Romney. Because it doesn't make sense. It's not like she went and she did her court. He didn't vote for her before, so she went and she did her job, and people didn't like some of the stuff that she did there anyway. And there's more information that's come out about her sentencing, and then even her mindset back in the day when she was in college at Harvard, and all this stuff like combined, and including things like I don't know what a woman is. Why aren't these red flags? Why aren't these red flags? It's like, well, I'm not going to agree with every decision. But it's not about whether you're going to agree with every decision. But are you going to agree with, is she going to follow the law, the Constitution, as it is written? I think there's good speculation that that's going to be a no. When you read decisions from Breyer, and she clerked for him, so people think that she's probably going to be in the same vein of thinking, and you know, it's not going to shift the ideology of the court too far, I guess. But if you read some of the thinking from like the liberal court and stuff, like some of it doesn't even make sense, like with the COVID lockdowns, and there was a ruling that I read about New York was sued because they were clearly treating religious institutions with prejudice versus like other businesses, like a bike shop could have like a certain amount of people in there accordance to, I don't know how much space you had, but religious institutions were just capped out at certain numbers. And so they tried to like pull the lawsuit, and the people doing the lawsuit were like, no, you're clearly just going to institute the same things if we pull the lawsuit. So no, we're just going to go to the Supreme Court. And when they got to the Supreme Court, I can't remember if it was a 6-3 or 5-3, but in my opinion, it should have been a 9-0. Everyone should have been on the same page about this because it was pretty clear. But if you read like the liberal justices, they're just like, well, you have to consider the science and they're just trying to keep us safe. I'm like, all these people have been so wrong about the pandemic. I'm like, what does the law say? What does the law say? And you had Sotomayor in talk about in the wasn't the case with OSHA, and she was like misquoting like numbers of like kids who were sick or hospitalized or something, just outrageously bad, false information. So I want to know, what does the law say? I don't know what, I don't want your liberal perspective. I'm like, oh, well, they're coming from the right place. They're just trying to keep us safe. And what if they're wrong? It would, like they have been repeatedly. So you want to make all these decisions on shoddy science that's going to impact our free speech for the rest of the time America is a nation, unless your ruling gets overturned in the court, which it's pretty hard to do, apparently. Nah, brah. No, thank you. So Mitt Romney, I don't understand. Other than maybe he just doesn't want the heat from the media, and he wants to. I think he likes looking like the principled Republican that will tick off his side when necessary. And if he's just like placating to the press and wants a little attaboys here and there, like the war on women was started like during his campaign. Women full of binders and all, like, I don't know, made it sound like I don't know, he was a pimp or something. It was just like applications or something. They made it seem so weird, and they treated him awful during his campaign. He was so milk toast, and they treated him so awful. So Biden went around talking about how they're going to put us back in chains, talking about black people. Like, you put y'all back in chains. So after something like that, how can you think there's any sort of middle ground? Well, like the media, like, don't do these people any favors. Like, have integrity, but I don't think this is a decision made for the good of the country, nor for the good of your party, which he pretends to care about, being the presidential nominee. But if you recall back to when Trump was running, and he was there are a bunch of people still in the race, and he held a press conference and had a couple of brands that failed under Trump, like Trump wine and other stuff, and they talked about how bad of a businessman Trump was, and how he shouldn't be the nominee. And it was like Mitt Romney's attempt to stop Trump, and I thought that was such a punk move, and I really hated it. And not everyone who's a Republican has to be so deeply involved in the party politics, but I'm like, you were the Republican nominee for president. So you could, like, I understand trying to flex a little bit to support a candidate that you like, but this is the candidate that was on his way to being the nominee, and you want to tank him? You want to tank him. And I understand he wanted other people to be the nominee. But to me, the complaint didn't even make sense, because I'm like, I think I was in my office at the Michigan Republican Party when he was doing this press conference, and I started looking up Trump businesses, and I'm like, he's complaining about 6 different ones that went bankrupt, and they have like 500 subsidiaries. I'm like, that doesn't sound too bad to me. Like, it doesn't sound like too bad to me. And then it's still hard for people to correlate, like, oh yeah, Trump wine went broke, but they're looking at skyscrapers with Trump's name on it, and they're like, something's not adding up here. Like, the reality is just too stark for people to absorb. So to me, it seemed like such a whack like attempt to stop him. And then I just didn't really appreciate him doing it anyway. And then after it was over and Trump won, which I'm pretty sure Trump was trolling him to be like, but he was willing to be the Secretary of State. It was going to Mar-a-Lago, and there's this picture of him kind of sitting in the dark, looking like, I've sold my soul and have no dignity left. I wish I had that picture if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I think Trump was just playing games with him. And there are people who are mad, and they're like, he better be playing games with him, because Mitt Romney is trash. People don't like when I use the word trash, but he just annoyed me to no end. So you want to talk about a long-term impact on the country, putting someone like Ketanji on the bench is a long, and I believe negative impact on the country. But Mitt Romney, he's that Republican who has that decency and honor to do what we want from time to time on the left. So we like him when he does what we want, and he's awful and terrible when he does something that's just Republicanish. Like, he's just the worst. No backbone, no spine, and well, I can't say he never has backbone or spine, but this is really awful. This is awful. And you know what? I think Mitt Romney, if I'm not mistaken, bear with me. I think he's one of the Republicans that voted for Rachel Levin. I think he is. I know Collins and Murkowski did. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. We're about to see. I'm looking at this article I wrote some time ago. I think it was just Murkowski and Collins. Okay, I can't light him on fire for that. I sure was going to. I sure was about to. Okay. But he's made some bad decisions, and this is a bad decision. So I'll leave it at that. I want to move on to Elon Musk before I go. So long story short, Elon has noticed that Twitter is not a bastion of free speech, and he did his own Twitter poll and asked people, do you believe that Twitter upholds, free speech? And people overwhelmingly said no, and he said there'd be dire consequences after the poll. And then he bought like 9 shares of Twitter, and now he's the biggest shareholder of the company. And so people are now asking him to bring back Trump. They're naming things like, hey, can you unsuspend Babylon B and bring back Project Veritas and all these other folks? And that'd be great if he did, and Twitter just kind of returned to like being the wild, wild west. I don't know how that's going to influence and impact other social media sites that have been started by Trump and other activists, people on the right. But the thing about Twitter is there are so many people of different views that are still on the site, and it's kind of like wild wild west, and you can engage with so many people who think differently. And in other spaces they are still like a bit of an echo chamber. So, and it's good to converse with people who are like-minded, but sometimes you do want to trigger a lefty. you know so I think and there's no reason why both can't still exist as well. There's lots of different platforms, but I'm happy for this move, and I'm happy that you have someone who's like a free speech absolutist, like Elon, who is getting involved here. And I think it would be great if they would start allowing particular people back, like Project Veritas. Just recall for a second why Trump was banned on Twitter after, of course, January 6th. But this is what the 2 tweets that Twitter said got him banned. The first one: the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. I think that's evidently true, right? They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. Kind of vague, mysterious, um, but threatening, no. And here's the second one: to all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. Those 2 tweets were like, Twitter's like, it's enough. We've had enough there. So Twitter said this about the second tweet: the second tweet may also serve as encouragement to those potentially considering violent acts that the inauguration would be a safe target, as he will not be attending. That's not what Trump said. Like, okay, Twitter, you put that idea in the atmosphere, and of course nothing happened that day. But they're like, well, Trump's not going, so people could attack. We have to delete his account because people may attack because Trump signaled he's not going. We're just throwing that idea out there for anyone who wants to do that. Like, it was so bizarre. So out of all the tweets, they probably could have gone back throughout his history, and they could have just started flagging like old stuff and been like, you know what, you're gone. But these 2 tweets, especially the second one saying he wouldn't be at the inauguration, they probably were just so offended that Trump wouldn't. They're mad anyway that he wouldn't just like lick his wounds and whatever. But at that point, they're like, you could at least suck it up so we could boo you at the inauguration, and he won't go. How dare he? Let's delete his account. That and they probably took such offense to it. They're like, you know what, we're going to take away this thing that you love, this way that you can communicate to the people, and we're just going to shut you down. I bet it was far more petty than that, because these tweets don't make sense as far as why they decided to get rid of him. Again, they could have gone through his history and just flagged a bunch of stuff in the past and be like, oh, too many community guidelines violations. But these 2 tweets, no, very, very bizarre. So we'll see what Elon Musk does. I think Twitter will be in much better hands if he can start going to those shareholder meetings and being like, I own this place now, y'all. So we'll see how he flexes his muscles there. But man, that is a big flex to be able to do that. That is interesting. So I'm looking forward to how things could potentially change on Twitter. A lot of people up and decide to leave these platforms because they don't really respect free speech. But there's a lot of people still there fighting for it. There's a lot of people still fighting, trying to get the good word out. So I think this is great, and we'll see what happens. So that is a show for today. Please make sure that you guys go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the site. Like, you can go back and read this article. Of course, this is old now because it's, like 2 years old now, I guess. No, I guess it's about just a year. About a year. Yeah, January 13th. 2021. Yeah, so you guys can go back and read different articles I have on the website. You guys can check out different videos that I have, different resources. Make sure you follow me on all my different social media platforms. If you enjoy what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. And also check out different merch that I have, as like this goat hoodie that I'm not wearing the hoodie. We do have the goat hoodie, but I also have the t-shirt on. I'm so used to mentioning the goat hoodie, but we do actually have them in t-shirts. I was thinking about wearing this at the Trump rally, but I did not get it ordered in time. So if you guys want stuff on certain occasions, make sure you order it early enough. But it arrived like yesterday, so I was like, oh dang, but it's okay. I look nice. So I just wear a black dress and like a white jacket and whatever. But anyway, great stuff on the site. You guys can get like the Denounce White Supremacy Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of racist stuff on the back. And also we have the I Am Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt and other things. And also, if you do not know, you're not aware, I do write books. And if you guys are interested in any of the content that I make, I write from like children's book on to like new adult. None of my children's books are like picture books. We're still working on those, like illustrations and stuff. But I do have a children's chapter book, Super Kid 2, that a lot of parents have told me that who watched the show, seen the show, seen me advertise this, bought the book for their kids, and have said that they really, really enjoyed it. So I really appreciate that. But there's a lot of great conservative values in the book. It's not a political book, but there's just a lot of really good conservative values within the book about doing right for right's sake, believing in yourself. What do you do when you face an impossible situation? And how to deal with bullies, and it just what happens when you lie. Like a lot of really good values that you'd want to instill within your kids. And then you also have contemporary fantasy, historical fiction fantasy. I think the story takes place during the Civil War. Imagine like X-Men meets like Harriet Tubman. So it's all these stuff is available on Amazon. If you go to blacktnews.com and hit the merchandise button, there is a banner that'll take you to my book website. But if you just search me on Amazon, Christina Bar, you'll be able to find Christina L. Bar, middle initial. You'll be able to find all my stuff on there. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Compliments in the chat. I appreciate you guys. I do read them. I can't like respond to all them as I'm like going through all my thoughts, but I appreciate everyone who watches live, and I do appreciate everyone who watches back and still shares everything. So God bless, and I will see you guys tomorrow.